Let's take a look at some of the headlines for this hour. Former Labour Cabinet Minister Peter Mandelson has been released on police bail following questioning over alleged misconduct in public office. Scotland Yard opened an inquiry into the ex-business secretary after material surfaced indicating he may have passed classified Whitehall intelligence to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. US President Donald Trump threatened nations with punishing tariff hikes if they play games after his trade policy setback before the Supreme Court. President Donald Trump has denied reports that the top US military officer has flagged the risks of major operations against Iran, saying Washington would easily defeat Tehran in any conflict. Ukraine is marking the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion with a show of solidarity from its staunchest allies and no immediate end in sight to Europe's biggest war since World War II. The United States is holding meetings with Geneva with Russia and China delegations about nuclear weapons after the final treaty restricting Washington and Moscow's nuclear deployments expired. Mexico has deployed 10,000 troops to quell clashes sparked by the killing of the country's most wanted drug lord that claimed dozens of lives. News of his death triggered spasms of violence, with cartel members blocking roads in 20 states and torching vehicles and businesses. South Korea's former president Yoon Suk-yeol has filed an appeal against an insurrection conviction stemming from his 2024 martial law declaration. A landmark social media addiction trial resumed with a YouTube executive insisting that the Google-owned company's aim was to give people value, not hook them on harmful binge viewing. And now we come at you with some breaking news. A 5.6 magnitude earthquake has just struck off the northeastern coast of Taiwan in Yilan County. The quake had a depth of approximately 66 kilometers, according to the island's weather administration. Buildings in the capital, Taipei, were briefly shaken, but there are no immediate reports of damage or casualties. Authorities continue to monitor the region for any aftershocks and urge residents to stay alert. Taiwan is located in a seismically active area, making earthquakes relatively common, though strong ones can still disrupt daily life. Emergency services say they are ready to respond if needed. And now for your top stories this hour. European Union Chief Ursula Von Der Leyen has arrived in Kyiv on the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, reaffirming Europe's unwavering support for Ukraine, both financially and military. On her 10th visit to the Ukrainian capital, von der Leyen pledged continued aid, stressing that Europe will stand by Ukraine through the harsh winter. She also sent a strong message to both the Ukrainian people and Russia, saying Europe would not relent until peace is restored on Ukraine's terms. Since Russia's invasion, the EU has provided nearly 195 million euros in support, including military aid, and continues to assist with energy security and emergency supplies for Ukraine. We are now being joined by retired Major General A.K. Swatch, who is a geostrategic expert joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. In considering Russia's continued attacks on energy infrastructure and on residential buildings, train lines, all of these key needs for the people, how important is EU support for Ukraine's energy and humanitarian needs in the coming year?
Very correct. They're not denying the fact Ukraine needs a lot of support from European Union, NATO, as well as from the US. It can't fight alone the might of Russia. Remember what Russia is doing now. It is striking on the energy sector of Ukraine. It wants to break the will of the Ukrainian people. Now, the way they are striking it, they are striking basically on the supply chain, command and control, and also the energy sector, whether it is in Kyiv, Kharkiv, or you can say Zaporizhia and Kherson. It is now also started targeting certain ports which are on the Black Sea, like Odessa, because it wants the Ukraine should have a big problem in time to come, that they will not able to connect themselves to the Black Sea also, and they want them to make a landlocked. Now the overall situation which is fanning out is extremely bad as far as Ukraine is concerned, because in extreme harsh winters, when their energy sector is being attacked, it is affecting everyone, and almost 60 to 70% of infrastructure of Ukraine is also gone. And now the talks which are taking place between Russia and Ukraine, they are not reaching to any conclusion, or they are not reaching to any agreement. The reason is simple, because as far as Russia is concerned, its demand are this, that the special military operation which they launched 4 years back, they want that the Donbas area, especially Donetsk and Luhansk, the complete area to be given to Russia, and they can discuss something about Donbas and Zaporizhia, and they want that Crimea to be also regularized. And this is what their main line is. And the second thing is to give an undertaking that Ukraine does not join NATO in future. Now this is with the red line which the Russia is not ready to compromise. It wants the complete Donbas area, including Donetsk and Luhansk. Whereas the Ukraine says they cannot compromise with the territorial integrity and sovereignty. They want basically the ceasefire to take place, and wherever the situation is on today, it should freeze. And Ukraine want that should be a security guarantee should be given to them. This security guarantee should include European Union also, in addition to US. So therefore the point is that they are not able to reach any logical conclusion, and both sides are now attacking on each other. And if you ask clearly, that advantage is to the Russia. Russia is advancing toward the West slowly and steadily. At the same time, the energy sector of Ukraine is completely destroyed. Therefore, they need a Europe help, no doubt about it. Europe was ready to give NATO almost for $9 billion. But problem is that within the Europe, there are fault lines which are now existing. The Hungary is not agreeing to it, so there will become a problem as to how will they able to support. But so far, Ukraine could fight only because they were given financial support, they were given weapons, they were given ammunition by the NATO countries. They are not denying the fact, as well as by the US. US was the one which has given the majority of it. But all these weapons were bought by Europe and then given to Ukraine. So the point today is, if Ukraine has to fight, and if Ukraine has to face the might of Russia, then it needs the support of Europe as well as the support of NATO and US. Let's see how things fan out. But as on today, situation is very critical for Ukraine, because its energy sector, its supply chain, its command and control, its infrastructure, its you can say the main towns have been hit very hard, and it is affecting the day-to-day life in Ukraine. and that is a very cause of concern. Though Ukraine is also responding back, it is hitting Russia, but that effect is very less compared to what Russia is able to do on Ukraine. And that's why what the EU chief now, Ursula, is there in Kyiv. She is trying to convey that they will stand by with Ukraine in times of need, and they will give them a weapon system, they will give them a financial system, and they will give almost all the help whatever is possible, so that the Ukraine can still fight with Russia. Let's see how things pan out. But as of today, situation is not very good for Ukraine.
Thank you, but please don't go too far, as we will be back with you very shortly. New US tariffs on imported goods went into effect following a Supreme Court ruling that struck down many of President Trump's previous trade duties. Initially set at 10%, the tariffs will now rise to 15% as Trump looks to address the US balance of payment deficits. The tariffs will apply to $1.2 trillion worth of imports, covering about 34% of the total US goods imports. Although President Trump faced a setback from the court's ruling, which limited his power to impose tariffs, the new rates are set to last for 150 days. Unless Congress decides to extend them, US Customs and Border Protection will start collecting these new tariffs today. The Supreme Court decision limited Trump's ability to unilaterally impose tariffs, while the president has stated that he would use licenses as an alternative tool for economic leverage. The tariffs are expected to increase household costs, with estimates showing a $700 burden per US household in 2026. The tariffs are expected to continue impacting US relations with trading partners, including Britain and Australia, who may face higher duties under the new plan. We are now being rejoined by retired Major General A.K. Swatch. Thank you for joining us back here today on NewsX World. Thank you. With the US now imposing these new temporary global tariffs, the 15%, under Section 122 of the Trade Act, what are the potential impacts on global trade flows and market predictability? And will this lose trust of the people inside America?
No doubt, there is uncertainty which is prevailing today in the whole world. Because what the Trump has done is that it has imposed tariff the way it wanted. It has gone up to 50% in India and Brazil, and then as low as 10% to UK. It has done to China almost 35%, to Mexico, Canada almost 30%, and about 18 to 20% to other South Asian nations. However, as far as India is concerned, from 50% is now reduced to 18%. But all said and done, what has happened now is that the Supreme Court ruling has made this tariff illegal. And therefore, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, it got a setback. But what it has done is that it has made use of the provision which is existing, and it can now impose 15% up for maximum 150 days. Now the point is that after 150 days, he has to go back to the Congress and take approval, which is unlikely to get it. There is no denying the fact there are midterm elections in November, so there is going to be a problem. Now, why did Donald Trump did what he did? What has happened is, as far as the economy of US is concerned, it's not doing well. In the sense, the economy is about $30 trillion, $31 trillion, but their debt is about $37 trillion. It wanted to reduce the debt, and that's why it has increased the tariff in all over the world, so that it can collect that money and can bridge that gap. And it has collected almost more than about 700 to 800 billion dollars in this period. But from where has this money come? This money has come from the consumer. And who are the consumer? The consumer are basically the common people of US. Because all these items, once you put a tariff, these items become costlier in US, and people have to pay for it. So now point is coming is that who will be, in case if this was illegal, this money has to be refunded to the consumer or to the importers which were importing these items to US. So there is a total chaos and confusion, and there is also another school of thought. Those countries which were having more than 15% as far as tariff concerned, they stand to gain, because now whether it is 18 or 20% or 50%, it's all reduced to 15%. So they feel that it's far better than what it was earlier. But at the same time, countries like UK, European Union, which had almost 10%, that they will stand to lose, because from 10% it will become 15%. But whatever it is, the uncertainty is prevailing. Now no one knows what will be the next step as far as the Donald Trump is concerned. Everyone knows the only predictability about Donald Trump is that he's unpredictable. No one can say what is next step. And the point which is coming is, India was about to sign a free trade agreement in about a month or so, and our team was to go and visit the US. We have now basically stalled that, because the way the situation is fanning out, you need to take a relook. But what has happened today is, this uncertainty which is prevailing in complete world will impact the economy of the world, and you find it that it will make uncertainty. You find the trade will be affected, the economy will go down. You find the rates of oil also going up, the rates of gold and silver also going up. So what has Donald Trump done, that he has now made the whole world uncertain, and instead of doing good for his nation, he has made sure that there is high inflation in US, there is more unemployment, and especially the Democrats are on the streets now. So I suppose whatever Donald Trump has done, it has bounced back, and his next step, what he'll do, will have more adverse effect in the economy of the whole world.
Thank you so much, Major General A.K. Swatch, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. Hong Kong's government has formally protested Panama's takeover of two Panama Canals terminals previously operated by Hutchinson Ports, Panama Ports Company. According to reports, officials have claimed that Panama undermined contract rights and acted without coordination, calling the move a serious breach of good faith. Reports suggest the takeover risks harming Panama's credibility and international trade norms, as PPC has invested heavily and created many jobs. Officials said the ports are now under the Maritime Authority to ensure smooth operations, while PPC pursues arbitration and legal claims. We are now being joined by retired Major General Sadaka G, who's a senior geopolitical and strategic defence expert, who's joining us from Jaipur. Thank you for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. In what ways could Panama's court ruling and subsequent takeover impact international investor confidence in long-term infrastructure contracts?
Yeah, excellent question. And all I would say, firstly, good afternoon to Ellie, and thank you for inviting to the show. One needs to understand the dynamics as prevailing in the Panama. It is to be understood that Panama once upon a time used to be a part of Colombia, and it seceded from Colombia long back. USA came into its sovereign dominance in 1903. Gunboat diplomacy, it dominated the entire geopolitics of this region, and by there was resistance from the Panamanians because they did not like their sovereignty being challenged by USA. And by 1999, it was Roosevelt who actually negotiated, but subsequently the number of presidents, they took up the case. I think Jimmy Carter played a very important role, and finally it was handed over back to the Panama in 1999. So what is the issue? The issue is actually related to strategic rivalry between China and USA. Why China? China has actually penetrated into entire Latin America, and also this portion, Nicaragua, Panama, all these countries, the Central American countries. So, how does it matter? It matters because there has been a drought experienced in this sector for past more than 2 decades because the drought, the water flow and the water level has been actually receding, because of which the cost of transition or transiting ships and the vessels have been going up, and the charges has have actually become exorbitant. Now, USA, by virtue of its old allegiance and its dominance in the region, has been claiming that its vessels are being charged out of proportion and very exorbitant rates. And comparatively, it is being claimed that it is much more than what the Chinese vessels are being charged. So, by and by, the China also has dominated. There are two ports where the Chinese company presently is actually running the entire and controlling the ports. And by virtue of this Chinese company controlling, the court judgment has actually put an embargo on the port, because they have been told that they have to pack the bag and go back. So under these circumstances, Donald Trump has been claiming that they must get back. It was a blunder, historical blunder, when they gave it back to Panama in '99. So this backdrop has to be understood to answer your question. All I would say, it is strategic rivalry manifesting into a kind of a slugfest, and the victims, the worst affected victims, are the people of Panama, who are actually suffering because of lack of livelihood. This is actually resulting and with an impact, adverse impact on the economy of Panama as well. Back to Ellie.
Thank you, Major General Sackerji, but please don't go too far, as I'll be back with you very shortly. Thank you. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is set to visit India this week, aiming to boost trade and repair fractured ties with the country. His trip marks the beginning of an Asia-Pacific tour that will also take him to Australia and Japan, as Carney seeks to reduce Canada's economic reliance on the United States. In India, Carney will focus on increasing bilateral trade to $51 billion by 2030 and addressing the fallout from tensions related to the 2023 assassination of Canadian Sikh leader. Carney's visit comes as the Canadian economy faces challenges from US tariffs, and he seeks to strengthen Canada's global economic partnerships in an increasingly uncertain world. We are now being rejoined by retired Major General Sadakerji. Thank you for joining us back here. How important is expanding trade with India, including the goal to be more than double bilateral trade, to be $70 billion by 2030 for Canada's strategy to diversify its markets beyond the United States?
It's very, very important because Canada represents one of the leading economies in the world. Although GDP-wise it may be smaller than that of India presently, but by virtue of being part of the G7 and the global north, I would say it has got lots to actually gain by connecting and progressing in their negotiation and relationship with the global south. India plays a pivotal role, like you have covered in the preamble of your question, because of the killing of Niger in 2023. The relationship had actually taken a very ugly turn, and now there is a turnaround with the new leadership in Canada. It is happening at a time when the global churn, because of tariff warfare, is being experienced in a very, very high intensity. And despite being the adjoining or close neighbor of USA, it is being treated as given a stepmotherly treatment. So Canada is all out to look out for new partners. So who are the new partners they're looking out for? They're looking out for new partners like Japan, Australia, India, democracies, like-minded countries with whom they have the potential of giving an impetus to the business. So what is the business between India and Canada today or now? Business is just about 10.8 billion, and wherein India exports, there is a trade surplus in favor of India and deficit in favor of Canada. There, the Canadian leader, Prime Minister, he has given out his objective of, I think I read it in the open source number of newspapers. It is 50 billion by 2050, not 70, like you said. I may be wrong, but it needs to be corroborated further, because from $10 billion to go up to 50 billion by 2050, it is a doable objective. It could be more, but not certainly less. So what are the products India is looking for? India is looking for, high-end technology. It is looking for oil. It is looking for uranium. Canada happens to be one of the largest uranium producers in the world. So it is looking for like what are the items India would be exporting? Textile, leather goods. You have those labor-intensive products, gem, jewelry, chemicals, etc., etc. So this has got a huge potential of growth. More than that, what is important between Canada and India is that Canada has got an Indian diaspora of approximately 2.4 million, and education is the center of gravity between India and Canada as of now. There are large number of students who are studying, but because of relationship having actually gone bad, now students have started looking for multiple options available other than Canada. So the leadership would do well to focus on this, and most important again is the latest AI summit which India has hosted, artificial intelligence. Canada being part of the leading economy, it would like to be integrated with the global chain and contribute towards artificial intelligence, and go along with the slogan which India has coined, artificial intelligence for all. So that actually brings about treating this particular new dimension of technology on equal platform, looking at every country equally, so that its acceptance and assimilation takes place without any barriers. Otherwise, this may turn out to be extremely hostile in times ahead. Back to you, Ali.
Thank you so much, Major General Stackerjee, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. Amazon said it will invest $12 billion in Louisiana to build new data centers. The project in northwest Louisiana is expected to create 550 full-time jobs, along with supporting roles like electricians and HVAC technicians. The company will cover all costs for the centers and is working with Southwestern Electric Power Company to upgrade infrastructure as needed. Amazon also plans a $400 million fund to support local water infrastructure, ensuring the facilities meet demands without straining resources. The move comes as tech spending surges driven by growing demand for AI software and chips, with Amazon expecting $200 billion in capital expenditures this year. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news